I wasn't supposed to hear what I heard in that corridor. I was early. The officer I'd arranged to meet hadn't arrived yet. A nurse had told me to wait on a plastic chair outside the ward. I was sitting there with my recorder in my jacket pocket when 2 police officers came around the corner and stopped maybe 4 meters from where I was sitting. They didn't see me, or maybe I was just ignored. I caught some fragments from their conversation. One of them said, "The tunnel they described doesn't even exist. 3 separate surveys, nothing down there." The other said, "Can you blame him? The thing is, the measurements don't add up. Whatever they found down there, it shouldn't be there." A long pause, and yet they moved on before I heard anything else. I wrote it down word for word before I could forget it. The tunnel they described doesn't exist. 20 minutes later, I was in a room with the first patient. His name is Dieter Baum, 53 years old. He has been in this hospital for 7 months. He told me everything. Nuremberg sits on top of itself. Below the old town runs a network of sandstone tunnels cut across 6 centuries. Storage cellars, brewery, infrastructure, air raid shelters. Most of it is documented. Even some tourist sections. Municipal infrastructure, open 6 days a week. Most of it. Last October, 4 urban explorers entered a sealed section through an unbolted grate of the Burgstrasse. They went in at 9 in the evening. 2 came out at 6 the following morning. The other 2 did not come out at all. The 2 who came out were found by a maintenance worker sitting on the pavement in the cold. One was speaking, the other was not. The speaking one was Dieter Baum. He hasn't stopped since. The other is in a room at the end of this corridor. His name is René. He has not spoken a single word in 7 months. So I started with Dieter. Officer Markus Held met me in the corridor before taking me in. He's a guy in his mid-40s, neat, the kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. He shook my hand, looked at my recorder and said, "That stays off until you're inside with him." Then he walked me toward the ward without looking at me. The investigation had been formally closed 3 weeks earlier. Accidental death. Cause undetermined for the 2 who didn't come out. The tunnel had been resurveyed twice. Both surveys confirmed the same thing. The section that ended about 80 meters in. No lower level. Nothing matching what Dieter described. So I asked what he had described. The officer stopped walking. "A descent," he said. "Steps cut into the rock, going further down than the geology should allow. And at the bottom, something that has been used." That was his word, used. He was talking about a room. But I will let him tell you his story. He started walking again. "The surveys don't show it. The depth he described would put it below the water table. And yet, here we are." He stopped at the door. Plain hospital standard. A small window of reinforced glass. "He'll talk to you. He talks to everyone. That's not the problem." He looked at me. "The more he talks, the more he remembers. And the more he remembers." He didn't finish. He opened the door. Dieter Baum was sitting at the table when I entered. He looked at my recorder and said, "Good, turn it on." He was a thin guy, clear-eyed, hands steady on the table. He looked like a man with somewhere important to be, who had been told he had to sit in this room instead. He said, "I'll tell you what I saw. I've told the police. I've told the doctors. I've told everyone who will listen. And I will keep telling it until someone does something about it." I asked what he wants people to do. Seal it. Properly. Permanently. Not a board and a padlock. Make it so that no one else goes down there. Then he told me his story. There were 4 of us. Myself, René, and 2 others. I don't want to use their names. Their families don't need this. We've done this kind of thing before. Urban exploration. Documented. Responsible. We knew the tunnel system well enough to navigate the restricted area safely. At least, we thought we did. The access point was a grate in a courtyard of the Burgstrasse that someone had left unbolted. We went in at 9. Single file, headlamps, emergency contact above ground. It was all standard for us. The first section was what we expected. Some sandstone, medieval stonework, brewery, infrastructure. We were maybe a 5-minute walk in when Kay found the steps. They weren't on any map. Steps cut directly into the rock, going down at a steep angle. It looked very old. The stone was a different color from the surrounding walls. It was darker, almost black in places. We should have stopped. I know that. I've been over it every day since. But we didn't stop. The descent took a long time. Longer than it should have. At a certain point, I stopped counting steps because the counting felt wrong. Like the number wasn't staying consistent in my head. The temperature dropped sharply as we went down. It was like in stages, as if we were passing through invisible layers of cold. René said his breath was visible, and he was right. Then we reached the bottom. It was a room, large. I couldn't see the far wall. The ceiling was low, maybe 6 feet above our heads, and it was carved carefully, with marks that covered every surface, arranged, repeating. They seemed to have a meaning, but we couldn't figure it out. The floor was flat and worn smooth. Whatever had been in this room, it had been in it for a very long time, and it had moved across that floor so many times that the stone was polished. And then the headlamps started to flicker, all 4 of them at the same time. They were flickering, cutting in and out, and then throwing off a dim red glow that none of us had ever seen a headlamp produce. Kay tapped his against his palm. Mine did the same thing when I touched it. Something in the room was affecting them. That was when the headache started. I thought at first it was the air, maybe pressure change, low oxygen, something physical, but it wasn't that kind of headache. It was behind the eyes, deep, like something pressing outward from inside my skull. René grabbed my arm. I could see from his face he felt it too. And then the voices started. Not from the walls, not from down the passage, from inside my own head. It was low, layered, more than one, all saying the same thing. I couldn't make out words at first, just the rhythm of it. A command, a direction, an instruction that my body began to follow before my mind understood what was happening. I started moving toward the passage. I don't know what René did in the next few seconds. I don't know what K did. I know what M did, because I saw it. She turned on me. Not aggressively at first, with a blank, flat expression of someone sleepwalking. Her hands came up. I stepped back. She stepped forward. And then the voices got louder. What happened next? I am not proud of it. The voices told me to finish it. I don't know how else to describe it. A pressure in the head that became a command, that became a feeling I had never had before, and hope never to have again. Something between rage and terror, and a desperate animal need to make the sound stop at any cost. I fought her. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. She was my friend of 11 years, and I fought her in that room, in the dark, with the red light flickering off the walls, and the voices screaming in both of our heads. I don't know how long it lasted. I remember blood. Mine or hers, I couldn't tell you. I remember the floor. I remember not wanting to stop. And then, a single gunshot, fired into the ceiling, stone dust falling down, the crack of it slamming off every wall in that room at once. The voices stopped. A figure was standing at the entrance of the room. He was tall, in dark clothing, a mask covering that face, the kind of mask with a full respirator, the ones they use on a construction site, and a handgun in his hand, pointed upward, smoke still coming from the barrel. He was screaming, the way he screamed to cut through noise, to reach someone who can't hear you. The sound of his voice, a real human voice in that room, after the voices, was like cold water. Something in my head had cleared. I looked at Em. She was on the floor. She was looking at her hands. Then the figure moved toward us. He grabbed my arm and René's arm, and he pulled us toward the steps, and he kept saying, "Go, go, go, get out. Get up there. Go now. Don't stop and don't look back. Just go." We went. Kay and Em did not follow. I have no idea who the man with the mask was. I never saw his face, and by the time we reached the surface, he was gone. We have never been able to identify him. The police found no evidence of a third person in the tunnel. Actually, they found no evidence of anything in the tunnel. As far as the surveys are concerned, there is nothing down there. Kay and Em have not been found. And then I asked Dieter about the man with the mask, whether he had any theory about who he was. He shook his head slowly. "Someone who knew," he said. "Someone who had been down there before and knew what it did to people. The respirator, the gunshot to break the sound, the screaming to give us something real to hold on to." Then he paused. He knew exactly what to do, which means he had learned it somewhere. Dieter looked at his hands. "I think about him every day, whether he got out or not, whether he went back in for Kay and Em. I think about what he found when he went back in." The nurse outside René's room was young, efficient. She looked at my recorder and said it needed to stay outside. I asked her how René was. She looked at the floor, then slowly back up at me. "Well," he responds to his name. "He eats, he sleeps." Then a pause. But he doesn't speak. He hasn't spoken a word since they brought him in. All he does is write on paper. I asked what he writes. "The same two words," she said, "over and over. We give him a pad, he fills it. We give him another." She glanced at the door. We thought at first it was his name, or someone's name, but it's not a name. I asked her what the 2 words were. She said, "Still here." Then she opened the door. René Kaufmann is a 47 years old man. He was sitting at a small desk by the window. His back to me, writing. He didn't turn around. On his desk, he had a pad of paper. It was almost full. The same 2 words, like the nurse said, line after line, in small, even handwriting. Still here, just repeatedly. Still here. I sat in the chair across from him and said his name. He stopped writing. He didn't turn around. I told him why I was there, that I spoke with detail, that I wasn't going to ask him to describe what he'd seen if he didn't want to. He looked at me, then he picked up his pen and paper and wrote something at the bottom of a page. Something different from the 2 words. He tore it off, held it out. I reached out and took it. The writing said, "They are still in the room. It has not finished with them. Do not let anyone else go down." Then he was back to his bed and started writing the same 2 words again. Still here, still here. I drove through Nuremberg on my way out. The old city in the afternoon, the castle on the hill, the Gothic churches, the streets full of tourists and coffee and ordinary life. Whatever built Nuremberg built it on top of something that was already there. The tunnel section of the Burgstrasse since has been resealed. A new gate, a sign warning of structural instability. The surveys confirm nothing beyond the dead end and 80 meters in. K&M still remain missing. The case is closed. René is still in his room, still writing. I keep thinking about the last line of the note he handed me that day. Do not let anyone else go down. I'm still not sure who he was writing to. I'm not sure it was me.